Welcome to Eat, Play, Chug, everybody. I'm joined by as usual, by my co-host Vince. Vince, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. It's great. It's grand.
It is grand. And speaking of grand, it's probably going to cost that much to get into an NFL game next season because profits are down and viewership is down. So I'm assuming that they're going to have to make it all up next year when fans are allowed back into the stadiums.
You want me to go there?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah. Just cut that, and then we'll go. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
like a
with
weird
the-
like
Yeah. Well, I didn't know where you're. Are you tossing me to the
yeah
COVID?
sorry.
Okay.
So let me just say one more thing. And I know Vince, you wanted to kind of unload on the NFL about the COVID situation. So go for it.
Yeah, I just have a couple of things, and I think this is well documented. Everyone knows about it, right? So the two games that came up, the Denver Broncos game last week, right? They are playing without a quarterback, which, I don't know how that's a fair match, right? How you could actually take that game, which becomes a loss for them, which isn't, it doesn't really matter because they're not in the playoff race, but then becomes a win to where, right, that's going to affect, say, the playoff standings. That's going to affect record, and truly, like, right, they're playing a JV squad. So I don't know if that's necessarily like the right way to handle COVID in that approach. And for instance, what we just watched yesterday, right? Wednesday's game, Ravens Steelers. Looking at that, right, that you had about, I think it was 10 or 15 players coming up from the practice squad that the Ravens were playing with. And I understand, right? Connor's out for the Steelers. You have Pouncey out for the Steelers and others. But playing and not practicing for 10 days and then going out and playing, this is why you get injuries like Marcus Peters, who had the calf. I know he returned, but then you have, Bud Dupree, who comes out ACL injury, right? Massive blow to the Steelers in their playoff quest, obviously 11-0 team, but that 11-0, right, that you go up against the Chiefs, and certainly you're going to have that loss. So I think the NFL, and I know they say, hey, we're handling it right, we're doing everything correctly, and I think really they're not, right? Because if you think about like what Goodell was saying, and I know this came out yesterday in kind of his press conference, and just to quote him, right, we don't see the bubble as most refer into one location. We feel strongly our protocols are working. We're willing to adjust and adapt those protocols to take additional steps. But I don't see us doing the bubble in the sense that the media focuses on it. I just have a huge problem with this because the issue is, right, we just talked about, you have a Broncos team who's played without no quarterback. You have three quarterbacks on the roster. All of them have COVID. So now you're bringing up a practice squad player who's a wide receiver, by the way, played quarterback in college, and he's the one starting for that. So how is that at all a fair slate against the Saints, who are essentially at full speed and to have one of the top four defenses in the last 4 weeks? You can't really judge a record based on that. And that alone, right, that game should be completely canceled. It makes no sense that we're playing that game. The second one, which I kind of talked about previously, right, is the Steeler game. So you have Ravens have 10 players out, 15 players out. So how are you actually having a game that's played with no practice or over 10-day period, and then now you're having these players come in, the ones that were set on the COVID list who were okayed to come in to and play. Like, that just doesn't make much sense to me. And we preach this whole thing around player safety. Really, the NFL needs to come out and actually just say, hey, you know what? We actually don't give a shit about the players. And I think it's very obvious, right? You have contracts that aren't fully guaranteed. You really don't get a big payday until you're in year two where you get that. And even that is not a fully guaranteed contract. So you have it from the standpoint of the owners, essentially you're providing their service, or if you will, to indentured servants who are, yes, they're paid in some capacity, but at the end of the day, they're really strictly working for the owners in almost a free way. So I think of it in the way of it's a very much the indentured servant approach. But as well, they're not looking at the player safety at all. And when you have a multitude of individuals getting COVID. So I don't like this back and forth of, hey, we are this, we're doing this. And when you're really not doing it, but you're really not saying what it's about. And let's just say what it is. It's all about the Benjamins. It's all about the money. So
it's been kind of obvious that they don't really care about the players for some time now. I mean, the whole concussion controversy especially being highlighted with the Aaron Hernandez documentary coming out and the effects it has had on his brain and obviously his behavior and his life. I think it's been quite obvious for a long time that the NFL doesn't care. It's becoming so blatant right now
Yeah.
that it's basically telling fans of certain teams that they don't matter anymore. Like the whole game does not matter to them anymore. I can't imagine being a fan of the Ravens or who's the team that had 14 players out.
Yeah, the Ravens. Yeah.
The Raven. I can't imagine being a fan of the Ravens and basically having a loyal fandomship to that, because let me just put it this way. I'm a huge fan of the Braves. I was born in Atlanta and I've been playing baseball ever since I was a kid. And I've been following the Braves because they won and they were great and they were very exciting to watch. I can't imagine if like this 7 of the starting 9 players were just out with COVID and they still decided to play how do you
Yeah.
convince someone to watch that game? How do
It's
you how do you convince all the loyal fans who've been there through rough times
Yep.
before the 90s and through good time? How can you convince those loyal fans to come spend money on your product? And I think that's reflected into the outcomes that you're seeing in the viewership, in the attendance, in the overall revenues. And I just don't see anyone like ESPN or any credible news outlet kind of covering this aspect of sports, and it's very disappointing. It's very, very disappointing.
It is. I mean, the NFL is pretty much rubbing it right in our faces and just saying, "Hey, I don't care about your team. I don't care about it regardless. It's about our being the owners' ability to make money, right, from TV revenues." Because certainly, right, they do have, say, CBS, Fox, and NFL Network, right, and ESPN. They do have those types of contracts. So it's not only the NFL, right? You have the TV deals too pulling this in. So there's a part of that. I think for me, right, it pisses me off a bit because we had the Thursday night game, which we talked to John Middlecoff about, and I think John was pretty clear about it, right? One day prior to that Thursday night game, you had your starting left tackle and Trent Williams. You had Ayuk, who's your starting wide receiver, and then one other starting wide receiver out one day before. So essentially, we're putting up a JV squad against right the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers is throwing the lights out of the ball.
Actually, it would be more interesting if Scrubs came and played. If they just hired a bunch of randos.
Well, maybe we go at some point.
What's that movie with
go to
Keanu
Shane
Reeves?
Falco.
Yeah,
The Replacements.
What's that?
The Replacements.
Yeah, fuck yeah, that would be so awesome.
It's a great movie.
I would love to see a like that's what they should have done for the Ravens game. They should have played the Ravens team with no. Well, did they not have a quarterback as well?
They had Robert Griffin III,
the third string quarterback, and 14 stars out against a scrub replacement team. I would just love to see, or like a college team. It would have been great.
Yeah, I mean, I at the least, I think the one thing, right? Let's just point this out because I think everyone knows this, but the NFL, right? It's the greatest drug. I think everyone's just simply addicted to it because it is, modern day gladiators. It is that kind of, humans who are bigger than, God and run faster than everyone or stronger than everyone. You get to see them go at each other. So at the end of the day, the NFL knows, right? Basically the sport is one of the most addicting, things to watch. Is why, yes, ratings have fallen, but there's still viewership, there's still fandom, right? All of that is still there. So I think the NFL, operates in the way of knowing, right, they have the greatest drug that they can provide to, a population that's global.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the good things that are happening in the NFL, there's some pretty interesting rookie quarterback situations. I know we wanted to talk about some of the rookie quarterbacks and their play, but I want to kind of first ask you of some of the notable quarterbacks like Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert or Tua, which ones would you take in a redraft now that we've seen 11 weeks of play?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think just this last weekend. I know this last weekend felt like it was like 20 days. I think it was around like 10 days or something of that sort from the Thursday to Wednesday. So no, it's 6 days. There you go. Good math, Vince. With that being said, right, there was a lot that happened. I think a lot of us forget about it. Joe Burrow, previous of this week, which last week was week 12, so week 11, had a substantial injury, right? ACL, PCL, MCL, total knee. I think there's some fractures, so forth. Prior to that, he was playing unbelievable, right? Throwing some of the best deep ball, best accurate passer, really throwing well. Cincinnati has a terrible offensive line, so he was being sacked at a very high rate. But obviously, I think deserving of the first overall pick, but we'll get into what the redraft I think it should have been. Herbert is playing phenomenal. Everyone goes off against the Jets. He did exactly what he had to do there. And then I know in this last week, right, went up to the Bills, struggled a bit, right? That's that West to East Coast travel, but still played fairly decent. I mean, it's hard to predict, or having quarterbacks travel in their first time to go to the East, especially up in Buffalo where it's cold, and you have all that going on. So, and then the last one, Tua getting benched, and I know he got benched, but also now dealing with an injury with his thumb where he couldn't even grip a football, so he had to bring Fitzpatrick back in. If we're going to redraft, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. I don't mind at all Cincinnati taking Joe Burrow. I think he's one of the most accurate passers that's in the NFL today, as a rookie. And I think, obviously if you look at the ACL piece, right, we can always Monday quarterback that, sure, right? You would take the healthy quarterback over to the injured one. But let's just say, for instance, if they're both healthy, they get through the season, who are you taking? I mean, Herbert looks really good. I would personally, I'd probably go Herbert first. I just like his frame. I like how he can run with the ball a lot too. He's very accurate. He can sling the ball, man. He can really throw it, and he throws it hard. He can kind of give you that Brett Favre mentality of throwing it through triple coverage and trusting the arm. He can give you the touch pass. He can run, right, like I talked about, and scramble and get those yards. So for me right now, going back, I personally would take Herbert. But yet again, I think this is, it's so close. Like if you went one or the other, I don't think there would be a big issue. And I'm a huge Joe Burrow fan. I think he's fantastic. I think he's going to be better than the Carson Palmer years of Cincy. And they'll very much have the same type of approach where you have Boyd and Higgins with Burrow as they had with Palmer and Ocho Cinco and then Hushmanzada. So I think there's a lot of similarities there. But, if we're splitting hairs, give me Herbert. But I'm telling you, it's not a lot. I like to always say it's kind of that 1A, 1B, right? So maybe Herbert's my 1A, Burrow's my 1B. I would change those, but I just from what I've seen from Herbert, I love it. I love it. I like how fast it's coming out, and I love the pinpoint accuracy. And the offense has completely changed since he's come in. They are slinging the ball.
Yeah, I'm a low key Dolphins fan, so I'm not going to give up on Tua Tagovailoa, however you say his last name. But
yeah,
it's kind of just I've pretty much fully given up on him in the back of my mind. I'm still kind of praying to the football gods that he just pulls, amazing play out of his back pocket. But I mean, no one's going to be like that golden standard of Kyle Murray. That's just a way too high of an expectation. And speaking of Kyle Murray,
Kyler Murray,
Kyler. Oh, I'm sorry. And speaking of Kyler Murray, he's trying to coin a pretty awesome nickname in Hail Murray. There's been some pretty epic sports nicknames in the past, like Black Mamba, or I looked up this guy named there's a hockey player named Stu Grimson. He was called the Grim Reaper.
Ooh,
it just I think goes hand in hand with that one. Actually, that might be my favorite one, the Grim Reaper. But Kyle Murray, Hail Murray. When you got a nickname like that and you play as well as you do in a premier position like a quarterback, boy, that's exciting.
Well, and DeAndre Hopkins there's an article that came out. He's always about like pay me in equity, right? He's actually a 28-year-old, and he's in a bunch of different companies where he's invested in those. And he actually negotiated his own contract with the Cardinals when he was traded. So He's well versed, right, out of Clemson.
Good
He's a
for
smart
him.
guy. I would say, yeah, Kyler should get that trademark, but there might have to be a little bit of royalty. Maybe 1% go to Hopkins. I mean, that doesn't happen without Hopkins out jumping three defenders of the Bills. Also, I know, and maybe we can show it, as we go through this on the podcast. The one image that was really interesting was Hopkins, and then we're kind of transitioning here, but Hopkins with the gloves in the air, with the football in his hands, and then the Jordan sign as there's like Adidas, Reebok, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, and that's the I think sponsorship piece there, right? Hopkins should get one for kind of this Jordan, catching the ball above all the other brands, right? When, like I talked about, there's the Adidas and Nike, over three guys. I mean, this is like the marketer's dream, right? And there's probably a commercial coming out, and we'll probably see it soon.
Yeah.
And then Murray, right? So the whole Hail Murray, I think that's great, right? But I think you got to give 1% royalty to Hopkins. A couple nicknames I like, and these are NBA. Wilt the Stilt, Wilt Chamberlain. I think that's one of the best ones. My favorite basketball player, David Robinson, the Admiral, out of Navy. I think that's also a great one. There's a couple out there I'm sure we could find, like Gary Payton, the glove, right?
Or
so
Babe
we could
Ruth,
find
obviously, the Sultan, the SWAT.
Yep. The Colossus of Clout. The Great Bambino.
Yeah, dude. Hail Murray, off to a good career, man. I'm excited for Arizona. Good for them.
Yep.
You're killing me, Smalls.
All right. For this week's NBA talk, since I don't really know anything about the NBA, we're gonna bring back on Dami Lianes. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
It's Leanne.
Lianes.
It's Italian
for years.
It's understandable.
Greek.
Okay.
Yep.
Lianes. We're bringing back on Donna to talk about the NBA this past 2 weeks. There's been a lot of movement. The draft happened, and to start off, I want to ask you, Dom, who are the winners in your book from the NBA draft?
In terms of winners, I mean, can't really win when the draft class is as weak as it is. I did like what the Pistons did, and they got Sadiq Bey at 19. I thought that was a pretty solid pick. Other than that, you can go to the Warriors. They filled a need and also got the most talented player in the draft, probably. Most interesting is LaMelo Ball going to Jordan. We want to see that LeVar versus MJ one-on-one. So that's going to be a win for the people. I'm going to call that. I want to see LeVar just get stomped by MJ. So we got to make that happen now that LaMelo is on the Hornets. So that's a win for the people.
All right, yeah, let's Dom, let's take a look at this in a different lens. And certainly the draft happened, right? That's settled. These are some kids that are coming in, right? May not make an impact right away, but there's a trade that happened that I think sends ripples through not only the East but the West. And that comes down to the Westbrook and Wall trade with the Rockets and the Wizards. What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I don't know what you want to call it, whether it's a win-win or, I think it's more of a lose-lose. I don't think you could have traded John Wall or Russell Westbrook for anybody else in the league. Those are two of the most bloated contracts for two players that can't shoot. Westbrook is kind of a black hole. I don't think that Harden and Westbrook pairing was for the long haul. They ran it for 1 year. And it's a whole different set of circumstances from OKC, right? I think Harden's a little bit more sensitive and he couldn't take Russ's intensity. There's a bunch of reports about Harden's feelings getting hurt when Russ called him out. So I think Harden had a problem with Russ coming in and thinking he was the alpha because Harden came off the bench, but the Rockets are Harden's team. So I didn't think that was for the long haul. On the flip side,
were hurt. Good. Didn't he? I mean, he did just have like those comments against his the way his the Rockets owner voted in the election, right?
Yeah.
Had any part in this movement?
I have no idea. I mean, the Rockets are just kind of imploding. Tillman Fertitta has been getting brutalized by COVID with all his restaurants. Mm-hmm. So there's been a lot of talk about the Rockets cutting salary. They traded Covington. So they swapped out Westbrook. For all intents and purposes, I think that the Wizards did get the better player. Now, Westbrook is better than Wall. He always has been, but Wall's also coming off 2 major surgeries. The guy hasn't played in 2 years. He's always relied on his athleticism. So what's he going to look like? So from that standpoint, I think it's a little bit safer for the Wizards because they did get the better player. Now, I think the Wizards are going the opposite way of where they should be going. They're basically lining themselves up for exactly where you don't want to be in the NBA, which is kind of a 5 to 7 seed with no hopes of winning a title and a huge bloated payroll, right? The big thing that people were clamoring for was a Bradley Beal trade, right? So you trade Bradley Beal, you hit the reset button, and then you start stockpiling assets similar to what the Pelicans and what the Thunder have done. For small market teams, that's kind of what you have to do. But now they got Westbrook, they have Beal. They're not going to beat anybody in the East. They're probably going to be a 5-6 seed, and they're just going to stay there for years. So I went back to it being a lose-lose. I also saw a report that Harden wanted to play with John Wall over Westbrook now. So I think both teams just end up in a spot that you don't want to be in. The Rockets relying on a player who hasn't played in 2 years, and now the Wizards basically going into NBA purgatory.
Yeah, I agree too. I think like it's funny just looking back at this and just taking a day to digest this trade. It's interesting. I think both sides lose, right? I think that's what we talked about, right? But what's funny is, you have, like you stated, right, the team, the Wizards, who should have traded Beal, didn't do that. Instead, doubled down on let's try it with Beal. Let's bring in Westbrook because John Wall's injured, right? So it's bringing another ball dominant player. Maybe Westbrook now plays, on ball and then have Beal off ball because Beal's the better shooter. Or you go back to say like John Wall, right, in a more free-flowing offense now. It's not as stagnant. You have Harden who's going to be ball dominant, which is what he wanted, right? Westbrook took the ball out of his hands in critical situations. So now you get Wall to actually, be able to play up and down. And right, like you talked about it. Is he the same player? Probably not. You could also state that, with Rudy Gay, and nice green screen fall down there. But you could say with Rudy Gay, right, he came back and he's been serviceable, not spectacular, but serviceable. So I think the trade makes sense just to switch it up. The one thing that I thought everyone didn't look at, right, and that it's kind of the one area that I thought was the most interesting is if you think about this trade in its totality, right? So it first and foremost started trading, CP3, right, to the Thunder and getting Westbrook back, right?
Yeah.
And then now it's to where it is now in its totality. Really what's happened is that the Rockets have traded 2 first-round picks plus 2 pick swaps and CP3 to only get back, right, John Wall in the first. So to me, if you look at it like that, that's a terrible trade, right? So that's where I leave it. I think both lose. I think the Wizards are probably now more they're more competitive, whatever that means in the East, right?
Yeah.
Not much. Maybe a 7 or 8, maybe 6, probably 7 or 8, fighting for that. But I just thought that was interesting. If you look at the totality of the trades they made, CP3 to the Thunder, then Westbrook now to the Wizards, and bringing John Wall to Houston, how much they gave up makes no sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if there's any winner from this trade, it's probably the OKC Thunder, who own the 2 picks and the pick swaps with the Rockets, because Rockets are not going to be very good. They're building around John Wall, James Harden. James Harden has already expressed an interest to be traded. So how long is Harden going to put up with everything going on in Houston, them shedding salary? They traded Covington. Is PJ Tucker next? So if anyone's a winner, I think it's OKC.
I gave him 4 games.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's a lose-lose, but for all intents and purposes, like, this trade had to be done. I think Wall and Westbrook needed a change of scenery. And the Wizards are going to be more competitive this year, I think. But they're not going to do any damage. So, we've already seen what Russ can do with a shooter like Beal. He played with Paul George, and granted the West is way tougher. but Russ was still going out in the first round, and they blew that up. So.
Just a quick thing there, really quick. Before Josh, we jump to the next topic. One thing that was interesting, you just mentioned it, Paul George. I love how he put all the blame on Doc Rivers' coaching style, on how he played. Like, what do you mean, man? You're on the court, like you're ball dominant too. Leonard's carrying the ball, like you could change it up too. But you've proven, not only with Doc, but in the past with the Pacers, you can't play in the playoffs. So. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting take to just throw it on Doc. I know.
Playoff P. I mean, favorite memories of the Clippers blowing that 3-1 lead is I bet on the Clippers to make the finals, which is so dumb. And playoff P has a wide open three, and he hits the side of the backboard on a corner three. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. But to go off that point, I also think Doc is a horrible coach. I hate Doc. I think he was the beneficiary of the Celtics getting my title, but the guy makes no adjustments. All he pretty much does is just massage the NBA players' egos, and they like playing for him. But in terms of X's and O's, trash.
And he just refuses to take a throat lozenger. I mean, just needs one or two.
Yeah.
Speaking of losers, I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on the Phoenix Suns again, because we've been talking a lot about the Suns on the pod leading up to the draft, and they did make an exciting trade for the veteran guard Chris Paul earlier in the week before the draft, and but they surprised a lot of people, a lot of experts, when they used their 10th overall pick to select Jalen Rose in the draft. He's a center from Maryland, was tipped to arrive at the team further down in the draft order. However, the Suns selected him despite already having DeAndre Ayton on the roster. The Suns, they want to be competitive this year in the West, but it seems like they would have had a better use of their pick to choose Devin Booker, for someone like Devin Booker, or such as the aforementioned Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton was available at that pick, despite the Suns, foregoing those two choices. It was a little puzzling when they selected Jalen Rose. I don't know. What do you think, Dom?
Jalen Smith, right?
Yep.
Smith, I think, from Maryland.
Yep.
So, I mean, the way the Suns are currently constructed, their starting five is already set. You got CP3, you got Devin Booker, Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and DeAndre Ayton. So I think no matter where or which position they were picking, it was going to be more for depth. So Jalen Smith is kind of a power forward. He could come off the bench, athletic, and he's got some upside and potential. But I think the Suns were just in a position where their starting five is set, and what I would hope, or what I would do as the GM, you're just drafting the best position available or best player available at that point, because nobody's going to start over the current five that they have in such a weak draft. So, if I was the GM, and granted, you can't really rely on the Suns to do anything smart, but, if I was in that position, it should be best player available regardless of position. And if that's who they had as their best player available, then, I support that. But again, I think this starting five was set. It's a weak draft 10. So
yeah, but this is Robert Sarver, right? This guy is a complete joke when it comes to ownership. It's been well documented over the course of years, right? He's let tons of talent walk out the door, hasn't signed any long-term, right? Booker's complaining, and he actually did the Chris Paul trade. I kind of agree, just in the standpoint of, like, you have Ayton already, so you have Ayton, you have Booker, you have Paul. What are you missing? You're missing a wing, really, like a dynamic wing. Maybe that's not in the draft, I don't know, but to get another center, it just kind of like follows in line of, like I stated, right? Phoenix just has a history of doing things that don't make any sense, and I think this does as well, right? I get, like, you need depth and you want to have those areas, but at pick 10, like, you would, in a normal NBA draft, right? And I know this one's not deep, but in a normal NBA draft, pick 10's playing for you, right? They're coming and probably starting for you, if not coming off the bench, at least playing some heavy minutes. So I think they at least should have gone for the area of most need, losing Oubre, right? Maybe he was playing 3 or 2 and interchanging in that way. They need a 3. That's something they could fill. But like I said, I don't think any of us are are shocked by it. I do just think it's a big reach to go and get another big man when you just spent a number one overall on Ayton a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about that Suns ownership, you can't really trust them for anything. Notoriously horrible. Kelly Oubre even said it, when he was talking about actually being excited to work for an owner that wants to win when he came over to the Warriors. But I agree with you. I mean, at this, or with the current state of the NBA, you can't really get enough 3-and-D wings. I think a better pick would have been Devin Bessel. He would have been perfect, and he could kind of develop into that role. But they have invested in wings in the first round the last couple of years too, which is why I think they felt better giving up Oubre since he was up for contract next year. They had Cameron Johnson, invested a lottery pick in him, and then again Mikal Bridges, small forward, who actually looked really good in the bubble, especially on D. So, but I agree with you. You can't really get enough 3-and-D people. I like Devin Bessel. Yeah. Of course, he went to the Spurs, who always seem, they're essentially like the Patriots. When someone else makes a mistake, they always get to reap the benefits. But I think
so. Talking about that phenomenon, I want to talk about a guy like Tyrese Halliburton, who is slated to get picked between the 5 and 10 slot, but he drops to number 12, and from a guy on the outside looking in, you got to wonder, why does a player profile who's ranked so high pre-draft fall several slots lower in the draft?
I mean, Tyrese Halliburton. God, can't speak this morning. Too much coffee, I guess. But
never enough.
He's one guy that, a lot of scouts likes, but for me, he's got kind of a funky shot. It seems like he does a lot of things good, but he doesn't do anything exceptional. So what that profiles to me is he could be like a solid NBA backup guard, but there's not much upside. And in this draft, you might as well swing for upside or hit a profile, but doesn't really do anything spectacular. Nothing really stands out to me. Yes, he did shoot well in college, but again, he's got kind of a funky shot. I'm not sure how that profiles the NBA. Unfortunately for him, he went to one of the shittiest franchises who has been just blowing up the draft. Obviously, they passed on Luka Doncic for Marvin Bagley, also passed on Trae Young. But feel bad for the guy who went to the Kings. He could have went to a better team. I think the Spurs would have been a good fit for him. But again, I don't think he just does anything exceptional that really stands out when I watched him on tape.
Yeah, the Kings haven't been good since Vlade Divac's back tapped that Robert Horry 3. So that was kind of the killer, which ended the Kings forever. But I think, you make a great point, right? It's an upside pick. He probably should have gone lower, right? Top 7 or 8. But I think he went 12, I think it was to the Kings. And I think that's a great upside for them there. The issue is, right, what everyone talks about is the funky delivery, right? His shot. So that, right, probably gives people kind of sight of, right, Markelle Fultz. Right. That's an easy one just to pull out of a hat and be like, hey, we've seen it before. We've seen a funky shot. We've tried to recreate it. Right. There were shoulder issues or maybe mental issues. Like how is this kid going to handle it? We don't know. You could take another one like Lonzo Ball. Right. He's tried to change his shot multiple times now. Is he getting more accurate? Sure. Right. But he's a better passer where, like, say someone like LaMelo is more fluid shooter, more fluid passer, scorer, and so forth. Can't play the 1 and 2. So I can't blame anyone passing up on Halliburton, but, for the sake of the Kings, I wish them well. But when you, like you said, when you pass up on Luka Doncic, that's pretty rough. So if they can pair Halliburton and Fox together, I think Fox is actually by far their best player, one of the most dynamic point guards. I like him a lot, but we'll see how those two pair up against one another, right? I mean, you do have Halliburton. He's a bigger guard, right? I think he's 6'5", if I'm correct, or something like that. So, if he could play off ball, if he could be the defender and maybe that shot gets back together, that's great. But I think that's the big thing is, right, everyone has that kind of, if you will, PTSD feel of Markelle Fultz.
Yeah. Well, the upside. Sorry.
For Markelle Fultz, I mean, the Sixers really fucked up there. They're always talking about trusting the process. And then they fire the GM that puts him in the best position, basically builds an NBA team how the current or the current NBA lines up for you to do it. And then they get squeamish, fire the guy. You got Colangelo all on Twitter with his wife blowing up the team, and the guy trades essentially Jason Tatum and another first-round pick for Markelle Fultz when they already had a point guard and Ben Simmons on the team. That is one of the biggest draft blunders of the NBA in the last 20 years, personally.
Yep.
I mean, if you're looking at a Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, which I'm 100% confident Hinkie would have drafted Tatum, then you're looking at a powerhouse in the East for the next, 10, 15 years.
Absolutely.
So
What's funny too is that, they let Hinkie go, right? Bringing Colangelo. He has his side Twitter, like fake accounts, right? So making his dad proud, of course, who's obviously president of Team USA. And then you bring in Elton Brand, first-time GM, has no idea what's going on, right? Signs big man Al Horford, a big deal. I don't know what you're doing. And then you bring in Daryl Morey, which is like you just went back to where you started because Hinkie is a prodigy of Daryl Morey. So now you're just bringing in the godfather of analytics, right? So it's like you just did this huge circle, yet you're back to where you started. And during that time, you completely screwed yourself over.
Yeah.
So like that, if anything, tells you the ownership has zero clue what is going on.
No idea. They literally spent years tanking, accumulating picks, got squeamish, didn't trust the process, which is what everyone was saying. And then now they're back to where they started. They go back to analytics, but they're from a cap perspective and just a weird team fit perspective. Like you said, Elton Brand traded like Landry Shamet as well as some picks for Tobias Harris, who's a decent player, but he doesn't fit well with Ben Simmons and Embiid. They need people that can space the floor. So you're trading a young wing who can space the floor for them for an awkward fit that where he ended up having to give him a max contract, which is, again, a bloated salary. Then you sign Al Horford for the max. And how is he going to play next to Embiid? So They really shot themselves in the foot by getting rid of Hinkie. And now they're back to where they started, which is just really ironic because, like you mentioned, Hinkie was Daryl Morey's main disciple. And he got the Sixer job in the first place. So.
Yeah, and the last piece there too, what's kind of funny is Daryl Morey coming right to his first draft. I think he's traded the most players in the last 10 years, I think, right? He's had the most trades over the last 10 years. And he came in right away, right? We just got trades flying, boom, 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 bringing in Danny Green, bringing in Seth Curry. Yep. I mean, I was Elton Brand asleep at the wheel? Like all these guys needed were shooters. Like this is just the most obvious thing. And I mean, great. I don't know if we could have put together those trades, but to bring in those two shooters, this team's going to be better immediately, 100%. Right off the bat. And now you can have it where, right, you have Embiid get down on the block. You're not shooting threes. Get on the block. You're playing the block. Get that down there. Let Ben Simmons run some ball point, whatever it is. Get the shooters in the corners. Being Green and Curry, and then with whoever's left, kind of being that dominant threat. I believe that's what Tobias Harris. Doing that. So I think just off the bat, we're 3 months in, he's already made a massive change. That's going to help them actually put out some winning or some success here in the immediate future.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I mean, it's astounding how many NBA GMs or any GM for that matter are just idiots when it comes to building a team. Like any casual fan knows that the Sixers need spacing. So what does Daryl Morey do? He gets in there and he gets shooters. He trades all for shooters. He drafts Tyrell Maxey, who I really liked. I thought that was a really good pick.
Yep.
So he's got him and then Danny Green, Seth Curry, gets rid of Horford in that awkward fit and bloated contract. But, seems so obvious. But for some reason, these general managers have no idea how they get these jobs because that's easy. You have Simmons who can't shoot. Then you have a big man in Embiid. So it's already an awkward fit. Why are you going to put more big men and clog the paint? You need floor spacers. So definitely like what Morey's already done.
Yep. Cool. Well, just the last thing about Halliburton, if you hit on a unorthodox player, you get a very entertaining face of the franchise, in my opinion. Like if you just look at Hunter Pence, I mean, I think that guy makes a name for himself anywhere he goes. I mean, people in Texas love him just for the 1 year he was playing there. But speaking of entertainment, the NBA schedule has come out, and I wanted to get your opinions on what you're looking forward to the most.
I mean, me personally, what I'm looking forward to most is just the NBA being back on in full tilt. Filling this void by betting on random college basketball games and college football games, win some money on South Dakota State. But yesterday,
That is
but,
Wow.
no,
Digging in as
personally,
well.
hey, I've got University of North Texas today too, so
Oh boy.
that's how I'm filling the void until the NBA
Huge
is back
favorite,
on.
huge underdog.
Yeah. I lost a lot of money on Iona, so I'm done with that.
No, but the big thing I'm looking forward to this year is just having all the stars being back and healthy. Last year everyone was injured. You had Curry, Durant, Kyrie, and just a ton of injuries. A lot of people not playing. Yeah, the Clippers were just Kawhi and Paul George chose when they wanted to play. There's just so many stars out last year. So getting all of them back healthy and competing out there is what I'm looking forward to most. How is KD and Kyrie going to work together? I think KD's kind of a dark horse for MVP potentially. If the Nets can make a run at that 1 seed, which I don't think they will. I think the Bucks just try harder than everyone. But if KD's putting up big numbers, he could be right back in the MVP conversation. I think the media always likes a good comeback story. So I think they'll get a little bit of voter fatigue. Probably won't vote Giannis for a 3rd year in a row. So I think in terms of MVP conversation, Durant's certainly in it if he stays healthy. But the guy that I think is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to taking the next step, Luka Doncic. He's probably one of my favorites for the MVP. Again, the media loves these stories about the player coming out of nowhere. I think they're going to have voter fatigue. So I think Luka's, and he's also favored with Giannis, co-favorites, I guess. But going to be really exciting to see what he does. I think the Mavericks should take a step forward just with Luka. But looking forward to having all the stars back and watching how they play against these young up and coming guys like the Jason Tatums, the Trae Youngs, Luka Doncic. So going to be a star-studded season.
Yeah, if Porzingis is healthy
Yeah.
for the full season, I don't see how Doncic doesn't win MVP.
Yeah.
I think one game that you kind of mentioned, and it was a perfect transition into this, is right the opening night, Nets and Warriors.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting game just on a couple things. Let's just start with the Nets first, right? You have Durant's comeback from obviously the Achilles tear against Toronto in the championship. And then you have, Irving there, and now you have Steve Nash, used to work for the Warriors as an assistant. Now they have that whole team going. And so I guess it's that whole return. But on the flip side, you have Clay, who tore his Achilles, right, kind of went down the Kevin Durant path. And then you have all these new additions of Wiggins now with Steph Curry, a healthy one, Draymond, and then, of course, the new addition, Kelly Oubre. I think that's going to be a really exciting first game. That I think for both teams is kind of the measuring stick game. Like, where do both of these teams sit? Is Kevin Durant the same player? Maybe not, but he's 7 feet and he's shooting at 7'5", right? So his shot's still going to get up, right? That's where maybe Clay in the future we'll talk about that. But I want to get your opinion. What do you think about that game? How do you think it's going to play out?
I think it's going to be interesting. Watching Curry and Durant go at each other is going to be fun. I think they're both competitors and they'll both want to win more so than any other opening night game. But like you kind of touched upon, it's going to be interesting how they integrate all these new faces with the Warriors. You have Oubre, you got Wiseman, they're actually healthy. And then with the Nets, they have a new coach coming in, and we haven't seen how Durant, LeVert, and Kyrie Irving play. So it's going to be interesting. I like what the NBA did there. They always like to they love a good storyline and to pit people against each other. So, the Curry versus Durant one is something that they're going to try and force. But I'm here for it. I think it's going to be entertaining. As a Warriors fan personally, I want to see Kevin Durant do well. I have no ill will towards him choosing a different path. I think he's one of the best players in the NBA, probably one of the best scorers ever. Like you said, he's 7 feet tall. He shoots high, can shoot over anybody, and he can handle the ball like a point guard. So it'll be interesting to see what he's going to do out there because Sure, his athleticism may be a little bit sapped, but he still can shoot everyone. So he's going to be fun to watch. Going to be interesting to see the Nuggets still. Obviously, they're a big team coming off the bubble, a lot of momentum. Jamal Murray kind of reminded me of a young Steph. Steph, when we took the Spurs to Game 6 in the second round, we upset the Nuggets in the first round. Steph was unconscious. So going to be interesting to see how Murray builds off all that momentum. That guy was just lights out in the bubble. So I think the biggest X factor for them, though, they lost Jeremy Grant, who essentially was always matched up on the other team's best wing. LeBron, Kawhi. Can the Nuggets defend? So their biggest X factor, I think, is Michael Porter Jr. That guy can score with the best of them. And if he
get right out of my mouth,
and if he takes another leap forward, I think watch out for the Nuggets for sure. And if I don't really know his defensive profile, he had a lot of lapses last year, but if he can step up defensively as well as being kind of like that second, third option, watch out for the Nuggets. Like, I love what they're doing. Could be a Warriors light.
Yeah, so, I don't know if Michael Porter Jr. is up for this, but I would say the most improved player. Yeah, I think that's on deck for sure.
The guy's 6'10". He's got a high release, all out Kevin Durant. Like, obviously he's got a long way to go, but for all intents and purposes, last year was his first full year of basketball in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
He missed all the college season. He missed his first pro season. So essentially last year was his rookie season. For him to be playing significant minutes and putting up some of the stat lines in limited minutes was just insane. So typically, if you're putting up 20 points a game with ease, getting a bunch of rebounds, I like how he profiles and projects for this year and moving forward, as long as he can stay healthy. But he's a huge X factor as well.
And speaking of what the NBA likes, they generate pretty much 40% of the revenue, it said, from the fans in the seats. I know it's been reported that the NBA is going to allow fans back for the season, but that's only like limited amounts and only for certain teams. Do you guys have any idea how, or what the trend might be going forward, like with fans? Do you have any? I can't get a read on what the league's like reporting on. They're saying that they're going to invest in, the vaccine of COVID being developed, or the rapid testing, technology. But I have no idea what to expect coming into this. I mean, it's a full 72 game season, right? Or how many games are there? 72?
Yeah, 72 games as opposed to 82 this year.
I can't imagine they're going to approach it the same. I mean, because you think about it, the NBA finals weren't that long ago. We're hopping right back into a full season right now.
Oh yeah.
And
shortest turnaround
with all these states now coming up and spiking, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, the NBA, obviously they had the bubble, which worked great for them. It's obviously not scalable over the course of a 72 game season. So it's going to be kind of touch and go, just like any other sport. Unfortunately, it just seems as though in terms of the amount of fans let into the arena, it just depends on what state you're in, just like the NFL. But I think a good goal.
But it's closed. It's a closed stadium as opposed to all the other
that's
sports.
The other thing. Indoor. So it's going to be a lot tougher. I know Joe Lacob submitted some crazy proposal. He was also made all of his money as a VC in biotech in terms of rapid testing, and the city of San Francisco rejected it.
Of course.
But I think a good goal for the NBA is going to be getting fans back in arenas for the playoffs, and however they do it. I don't think anything's going to happen in the first 3 months, and that's fine. You can eat that, but we got to get fans back in the arenas for the playoffs, because that's going to be around June, July. They're talking about already giving people vaccines this month, and hopefully getting a decent amount of the population vaccinated by June. But yeah, I mean, as we saw, it's essentially in that bubble, it was essentially an AAU tournament. There's no fans, essentially a scrimmage. I would love to see fans back for the playoffs. That's my goal.
I think you're right. I think you're spot on, just from the standpoint, right? We're just passing out vaccines in December.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, they may not even rush it back as much. I think, right, they would love to have it because they want that. But, it's probably just the majority of the NBA. You have two other owners like Lacob and Ballmer are just like, whatever. Like, I can just keep sinking money. It's not a big deal. Lose
Yeah.
100 mil here, lose 100 mil there. It's not, what Lake bought the team for 450. Now they're worth 4 billion. Like, what's 100 mil, right? It's not probably nothing. So I think it's hard to say too, especially in San Francisco, like you just talkked about, Dom, right? It's probably almost impossible here. Obviously, I think you detailed his background too, right? He probably has more knowledge than the local government here does, right? On the status of how you would actually, produce vaccines or give them out, distribute, so forth, have a bubble-like effect. He probably is more informed on that than they are themselves. And still even that, right? They're not going to let it happen. I think it's going to be really hard if this continues to, increase in the amount of COVID, positives, which it has, right? It's been flying up. Of course, we're getting this vaccine. I don't know if it's even possible. I think I like what you're talking about though. That June date, I think that makes sense. Then again, there's
the finals are in July this year.
In July. Yeah. So, but the biggest issue is who takes the vaccine, right? And that's a whole nother podcast. I'd love to see it. I think too, the NBA's got to be careful, just with how this is going. I think there's some interesting waters just in regards to kind of the China appeal.
Yeah.
How
weird, how draconian and fucking weird and fucked up would it be if, all these major cities like Golden State and New York required like a vaccine card for you to enter into the stadiums? I could see that very easily being the case. And that'll be like some post-apocalyptic. I don't like to be like a post-apocalypse or doomsday scenario kind of person, but that's the track I think we're going down.
Well, I mean, for me, like, obviously you guys know my dad lives in Thailand, and I'm thinking, like, personally, I wouldn't trust the vaccine developed in less than a year, so I wouldn't get it. I've also already had COVID, and I'm chilling. But for me to enter Thailand and these Asian countries, to your point, it's looking like I may have to present like my vaccination on my passport to enter these countries. That is an interesting point. Like, are these sports teams and sports arenas going to require a vaccine stamp, I guess, to enter their arenas or the stadiums? That could very well be the case. So
I think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because Ticketmaster even talked about it really quick, just showing like, right, in the last 3 days, have you gotten a test? Yeah. And that's basically, you need it 3 days prior to buying the ticket or prior to going to the event. So Ticketmaster is already doing that. But then you still, right, you have state and local governments who are way different than others, right? Let's just really quickly pivot to, say, the San Francisco 49ers right now, right? So they play in Santa Clara. Yes, they are still our San Francisco 49ers, even though Candlestick, rest in peace. They play down in Santa Clara. But with that being said, right, the state and local governments there said, no, you're not practicing here. You're not having teams come here. You're not playing here. Yeah. You're leaving, right? You're not even going to play in Oakland or wherever it may be. So they had to actually go down
Arizona.
Yeah, yesterday to Arizona, right, and kind of God forbid on their
if this happens,
stadium.
If this continues to happen for a year, I mean, what is the tipping point for franchises to leave big cities? That's the scary part.
Well, I mean, for these LAs and New Yorks, like the Knicks haven't been good in fucking years. They're the second most valuable franchise. So for the big big market teams, they make all their money with TV contracts and through the media. Again, actually, I think I spoke wrong. The Knicks are the most valuable franchise, even though they haven't been good years. I think Lakers are second. So they're obviously LA, New York, two biggest media markets. So I don't think it will affect them by not having fans as much as like small market teams who do rely on merchandise and butts and seats because, again, Knicks haven't been good in years, still the most valuable. Doesn't really fucking matter to them.
That's got to be James Dolan's band, right? He's bringing in all the revenue.
Yeah. His halftime shows, that's got to be why they're worth like close to $5 billion or whatever it is.
The banjo's a great instrument.
Well, so speaking about the NFL product and how, the whole world's been affecting the NBA product or sports products all over the place. How do you think it'll affect Christmas Day? Because this coming Christmas, we've got 5 NBA games, 5 pretty awesome NBA games coming up. How are you going to enjoy it, Dom? And do you think it'll be as rewarding as any previous Christmas specials?
So I always kind of said from the beginning that 100% the NBA is going to target a start date prior to Christmas, just because the NFL owns Thanksgiving. NBA has always been Christmas, or Christmas has always been the NBA's thing. I think the Warriors and Cavs, they always have their primetime matchups. So I'm not surprised that the NBA tried to bring them back for Christmas, and they kind of want to own that day, I think, for the years to come. With that said, I mean, I'm going to love to see the Mavericks and Lakers get to watch LeBron versus Luka. Luka's kind of the next up and coming guy. I think the Mavericks are going to take a big step as long as Porzingis can stay healthy. So that would be a fun game to watch. Obviously, the Clippers and Nuggets will be really interesting, just from the fact that the Clippers blew a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets. Nobody saw that coming. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. And then for all the Giannis to the Warriors talk, that would be interesting as well. But I think those last two games with the Mavs and the Lakers, as well as the Clippers and the Nuggets, are definitely going to be fun to watch. Just from the history, you got the stars with Luka and LeBron. But Curry and Giannis, I'd love to see them team up next year. So we'll see if Curry drops any hints about coming like he did last time.
Isn't this just like the ultimate, start your Christmas day at 5 a.m. because once you hit 9 a.m. on the couch, like I'm not moving all day. I mean, this I think it might be the best Christmas Day lineup that we've had. Oh, yeah. And it's intentional, right? I mean, it's obviously intentional, like you talked about. They need to hit this day pretty hard.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just don't see a game where, like, other than like the Nets and Celtics, and I think it's just because I'm not a big East fan, but still I'll watch Durant and Irving, right? I like and Tatum and
Tatum.
But yeah, but I mean, for me, it's like, go to the girlfriend's parents' house, throw on the games, open the wine. And that's pretty much it. What else do you need, right? Prime rib, and I guess we're done.
That's it. I mean, yeah, what they're going to position the Nets and Celtics is a potential Eastern Conference finals preview. So that's intriguing in and of itself. They're starting off with probably, I guess it would be the worst game, but still prime time. I mean, you got the Miami Heat, who made an inspiring bubble run last year. Big underdog, which you don't see very much in the NBA. And then obviously you got Zion.
Close.
Yeah. I would have loved to see the Heat beat LeBron, to be fair.
Yeah, man, that would have been
but
so tasty.
no one talks about that also, about the bubble, how LeBron played literally nobody. But we talked about this on a previous show, LeBron controlling the narrative. He's trying to say it's the toughest fucking bubble or the toughest fucking finals ever. Guy got to chill, rest his body for 3 months, and then literally didn't play a single other start. Warriors were done. Durant's out. Didn't have to face Kawhi and PG because they choked. And then in the finals, everyone's excited for a matchup, and the Heat lose their second and third best players. Not unsimilar to when LeBron lost Kyrie and Love against the Warriors in the first year. But they lost Bam and Goran the first two games, and LeBron got to coast to that. But when the Warriors did that, because the Warriors also benefited from some injuries during their first title run, the narrative is all about how the Warriors didn't play fucking anybody. But you don't hear that with LeBron and his band of merry idiots.
Yeah, I don't think we take anything LeBron says seriously these days.
No.
But that segues into this. The lineup of games kind of segues perfectly into what I think we should just segue into right now. Are bets of the week. Here we go. First off, on Christmas Day, we have Pelicans versus the Heat. Pelicans are odds at +4. Are you taking Pelicans +4? Heat odds -4.
I haven't looked at the game, so I like the Pelicans to take a step up this year. I feel like the public's going to be more so on the Heat just with the run they made, and in these situations where you have nationally televised games, I think it's always a decent bet to fade the public. And like I said, he got the momentum. Give me the Pelicans.
+4. What about you?
They lost Drew.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Yeah, they lost Drew, so don't know how that's going to impact them. But I think with Ingram, Ball, obviously Zion, they could cover that 4 points.
I want to go with you. I just don't know how they're going to play without Drew. That's my only thing, right? They had a big 3, now they have a big 2. I love Butler, big fan. Give me the Heat -4.
All right.
Oh, hold on. Give me 1 second. My computer's back.
He wants to be right on
and
this.
then do you think what's the other bits really quick? I know we'll cut this section out, but because I have 30 minutes, but I don't think we'll take that long on the other stuff, right?
No, we won't. It'll transition to the other bits are the Tyson fight and the girl kicking in football.
That's right. And then can I go on a NFL COVID rant?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I want to go on that with you.
Pretty prepared. So I drank a lot of coffee today.
Oh, we were supposed to do the NFL as well.
You definitely got to touch on that COVID rant. All right, we could run through this quick.
All right, cool.
All right, let's knock out these next bets here.
All right, next bets: Warriors versus Bucks. The Warriors are favorite, or is it favored when you're +7.5?
No, underdog.
You're okay. So Warriors are the underdogs by 7.5 points. Who are you taking? I don't really bet, man. So
save your money, kids.
So who are you taking with Warriors have a +7.5 or Bucks -7.5?
I mean, you're gonna call this a homer pick, but I'm not gonna. I would never bet against the Warriors.
Homer.
So, but to be fair, they've got a lot of moving pieces. Smart money would probably be on the Bucks just because the Bucks, for the most part, I guess they have to integrate Drew Holiday, but they still have Giannis, and they have less pieces to integrate. But still going with the Warriors +7.5, baby. Steph Curry.
Yeah, that line's too big. I'm with you on the Warriors.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've got agreement on one. All right. So the next game we've got are the Nets versus Celtics. We got the Nets are favored by 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think this is an easy one.
What? I mean, the Celtics have the continuity. They're plus, they're at home, but what is home court advantage anymore?
No Kemba Walker, by the way.
Huh? Yeah, no Kemba Walker. Kemba's going to be out. So give me the Nets -2. I think KD and Kyrie for that matter are going to want to make a statement. National TV. Give me Nets -2.
Yep, I'm the same there. No Kemba Walker. I think that's a huge loss for them. So then you have Tatum being ball dominant and Jaylen Brown, I think it is. Yeah. So yeah, Nets -2.
All right. And then the next game we've got are the Mavericks versus Lakers at 8 p.m. where the Mavericks are underdogs at a +6.
I mean, we'll see. Is Kristaps playing? I mean, I think that changes everything. Give me the Mavs +6. Luka going to shut down LeBron. I don't like LeBron's already saying how he wants to take the first quarter of the season off, complaining because it's such a short turnaround. I don't think the Lakers are going to be motivated early in the season. I think the Mavs are. They're going to try to position for playoffs.
Going forward forever. I will always, when someone brings up LeBron, I will always imagine his meme of him crying.
Dude, the guy had to Klay Thompson, Kobe Bryant, or Klay Thompson with a torn ACL, Kobe Bryant with a torn Achilles, shoot 2 free throws. LeBron has to be carried off because of cramps.
Yep.
All right, it's
idol you can use
on tangent. Vince, who you got?
So I think you'll change your pick here, Dom. So you're going to have no Porzingis in this game.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
So you're going to have just purely Doncic carrying the ball, right? No Seth Curry as well. He's on the Sixers now.
Yeah.
Obviously draft pick and so forth. But yeah, I'll take the Lakers -6 on this one. I think the underrated part of this whole thing is one Marcus Gasol. I mean, I don't know. That's a huge addition. I know he's older, but that's a huge addition because that guy doesn't need a jump. He can play with his credit card hops and still rebound and still, dunk the ball. The other one is Montrezl Harrell. I mean, I don't think the Mavericks have any answer for that. In fact, I don't think a lot of teams have answers for that. When you put both Anthony Davis and Harrell down low, now you have these, 2 players, one being obviously tall and the other being AD the tallest, but both having this outstanding reach, right? And both having the tenacity to rebound. I think Lakers this year are the best version of the Lakers they've ever been. Sorry, I almost dropped my coffee there.
All right, cool.
You're talking about the LeBron version of the Lakers.
Well, I'm saying with LeBron, with AD, with Harrell,
Gasol.
And
They also
Marc
got
Gasol.
Schroeder. They got Schroeder too.
Yeah, and Schroeder, right? And if Schroeder runs point, plays the Rondo era, I think he's a better player than Rondo, right? He's probably more prime Rondo Celtics time, like when KG and Paul Pierce. I think this is the best Laker team with LeBron being there, right? So
yeah, exactly, for sure. I agree. I think they're the overwhelming favorites this year.
Yeah, I actually, and I don't think it's close at all.
Yeah, me neither.
So then the last game we've got are the Clippers and Nuggets, where the Clippers are favored at 1.5. It's a close game.
So these games are always tricky. We say that there's not a home court advantage, but in Denver there is. You have the altitude. So are these players going to be conditioned to be able to play in that altitude? They might get gassed a little bit early. Personally, I think the Clippers are going to come out firing all cylinders. They want to prove that them blowing a 3-1 lead was a fluke. I think they're going to be motivated, which is the biggest thing about betting the NBA, which team is actually going to be motivated to win that night. So give me the Clippers.
Clips.
I'm on the fence here. I agree with you. Clippers could definitely come out and be. Man, that Nugget team is good. I know they lost like Jeremy Grant and what Plumlee. They're really good. There's the full team. The Clippers, I know with Ty Lue, right? They're gonna, and obviously, I think it was well pointed out in the beginning of this podcast how Doc Rivers, if you will, destroyed or didn't strategize or put in the particular X and O's. For those players, PG and Kawhi to actually take advantage of situations. So maybe now we see those two players actually do that. But I do like the totality of the Nuggets lineup. And then what we mentioned, right, Michael Porter Jr. coming and having, if you will, that breakout season, to be kind of what I'm thinking, comeback player of the year. I'm going to go with the Nuggets. Just for that perspective, I need to see what the Clippers are going to do. I'm not a big believer in Paul George, and I really like what the Nuggets do. I think they took a huge step forward in the playoffs there, and a lot of confidence, a lot of continuity. It's kind of the Celtics of the West, right? Where you still have that kind of balanced lineup where the Clippers are more top heavy, right? And you lost Harrell. Now all you have is Paul George and you have Leonard. So I think it's more. I'll take the.
Well, they did sign Serge Ibaka.
That's a great signing. That's true. That's a great signing too. I might eat this, but yeah, I'll take the Joker and the Nuggets.
Well, all right. Well, that concludes our NBA segment. Thanks a lot, Don, for joining us.
Anytime, boys. Now I'm gonna go root on Chicago State to miss a lot of shots.
Yeah, get your pom poms out. You're gonna need them.
And who else? North Dakota is what you got?
No, yesterday I took I'm just getting into the college betting thing. But I went 3-0 yesterday. Took nice. Indiana +2. South Dakota money line over Iowa State. It was actually South Dakota's first win over a Power 5 conference team in many, many years. So predicted that.
How about that?
And then I took the over in the Baylor Illinois game, the matchup of the two top 5 teams. So
Fighting Illini, Bruce Weber's Fighting Illini. That was a great team, not just to go on a random thing there. But remember that team, but they didn't win it all. I think they lost to, was it UNC?
Something like that, I think.
Yeah, that was a great team, though. Darren Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Darren Williams. The Nets gave up their future for him. But,
they're still paying for it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. All right, boys.
All right, boys.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
All right, boys.
Thanks,
Thank
Dom.
you.
Boys.
Thank you.
This past weekend, we kind of had a nostalgic head-to-head matchup in Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson again, which I had no idea until like someone talked about it that morning that they were even fighting. I thought they were joking. Like, wait, Mike Tyson's fighting again? Who's he fighting? Roy Jones Jr.? Wait, are we in the 90s right now? What's going on? Turns out I didn't realize this until starting to watch it. They also changed the rules, and there's only 2-minute rounds where it's only 8 rounds. It was quite interesting, especially since the fighters leading up to that match were really nobody except for, I guess, one YouTube star who I guess wants to start boxing. So he picked an NBA player to start boxing against. But Vince, were you entertained? What are your thoughts about the whole thing?
I was a little bit, right? So I think one thing that's pretty unbelievable is there was like between 1 million and 1.5 million pay-per-view purchases of this fight. So I think everyone was wanting to see Iron Mike come back out, right? 54 years old, looked in unbelievable shape. I know this only went 8 rounds. It was 2 minutes a round. He looked unbelievable in comparison to Roy Jones, who honestly kind of looked like he just stepped off the couch. And he fought more recently. I believe it was 2018 or 2019 when his last fight was. And you had Iron Mike's was more, I think it was 16 years ago or 15 years ago. So Roy Jones has been in the ring, or, in the past, but more recent than, say, Tyson.
Yeah.
The interesting part of this was, right, it ended in a draw. And if anyone watched this fight, and I know maybe there's some other people who have, disagreements in how I'm talking about it, I don't think this fight was even close. I thought Tyson won easily. In fact, in the first round, there was a a left hook into the ribs of Roy Jones. I'm pretty sure he broke his ribs in that first one, because right after that, he was only pickpocketing. He would then come up and grab. I mean, he knew, like, Mike's still punching hard. And we should actually show the post, fight interview when Mike comes in. Mike's not even breathing hard throughout the entire match.
Yeah.
At the end, he's like, I could have gone 12. We only went 8. Like, what is this? And then you have Roy Jones, who's, taking short, deep breaths.
Holding
Obvious
aside,
for broken ribs. Obvious. You take short breaths, and talking about how, wow, Mike, like, to summarize, like, wow, Mike, like, he still punches hard. Like, I'm going to go see if my family wants me to fight again. That's literally saying, I'm not fighting again ever against Mike, but I'll let my family be the one to take that.
Oh, dude, it was hysterical watching that post-fight interview. It's just, you're right. I mean, Roy Jones was chuffing. Mike Tyson was just sitting there, just like, I like to thank Roy Jones Jr. And like, I like the fact that I could prove everybody who didn't think I could go 8 rounds, that I could go 8 rounds. And like, hey, if Roy Jones Jr. wants to do it again, let's do it. Like, if people want to see it, let's go do it again. And Roy Jones sitting there like, yeah, I'll have to talk to my family. We'll see, what's going on. And if it works out, we'll come back. But like, bam, when Mike hits you, it hurts.
Yeah,
so
that's a no.
It was hysterical. The whole thing was actually entertaining, and I'm glad I tuned in. It did. I do have to say though, it was quite interesting to hear that before the fight, Mike Tyson had smoked some pot.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I think everyone's dabbled in some type of marijuana or if an edible or CBD, whatever it is, right? I mean, I'm not fighting anyone, period, sober, and I'm definitely not fighting high. If anything, you're going to find me in the kitchen eating, actually binge eating.
Raw cookie dough.
Yeah. Like, so I know he does it, like he was talking about, he does it pre-fight, he does it post-fight. Like it's just part of his life. I think you saw as well, right? Snoop Dogg coming out. What is he, 49 or something? And he's smoking a joint and he's high the whole time announcing the game. So you can announce the game high or the boxing match high, or you can fight high. Either way, smoke weed every day.
Oh my God. I'm just remembering this. The sponsor, Weed
Maps. So you can find your local dispensary.
Yeah. The whole thing was centered around marijuana, which, wow. I mean, that's when you're looking at Roy Jones Jr. fight Mike Tyson. You're like, no, this is definitely the 90s. And then you see the word weed maps in the background. You're like, wait, no. This is 2020. This is fucking weird.
Yep. The next fight, though, just very quickly, I know there's been this call out, right? The Holyfield Tyson. That's the one I want to see.
Oh man,
Holyfield can still box, no question. He's boxed more recent as well than Tyson. Obviously, I think it's well documented, right? Tyson bit off his ear. I think we all know that. So
they fought
twice.
Tyson's coming to get another trim job, just even it out.
Yeah, why not? I mean, we're going to Christmas. Might as well get elf ears. So
yeah,
the thing is that you've had. I think they fought 2 times in the past. One of them was that ear one, I think, and then it disqualified Tyson. The first one, Tyson beat him. So this is kind of that, third match, which we all need. Both heavyweights where, Roy Jones Jr., I don't believe was a heavyweight. I think he was more welterweight. So now you have true two heavyweights.
Mhm.
So I hope Mike takes this fight. I mean, honestly, and I think you'd agree, if you
I think
watched him when he went on like, just a little chair right during the boxing match, dude, he wasn't even breathing hard at all.
No, he
The
wasn't.
guy's 54.
It's insane. He's just crazy.
He looks
not-
bigger than he was at 24.
Yeah, dude.
He's
good.
whatever
He's
he's doing, send it over UPS.
Yeah, he's definitely getting breakfast with Tom Brady. But I want to talk about the real winner of the fight, who was Snoop Dogg, just for one quick second. I mean, not only did he perform like all of his classic hits, while he was smoking a fat J, while the fight was going on, it was he was giving us some of the best commentating that I have ever been privileged to listen to. It was hysterical. I was dying, and I just want to play this one quick clip.
This shit like two of my uncles fighting at the barbecue. Get your uncle out of there. Get him out. You go meet me in the backyard. I'm tired of this shit. Come on. Meet me back there.
It's like two of my uncles fighting at the barbecue.
Spilling the Kool-Aid and just knocking everything over, tables going down, families like, what's going on? It's a 40, 50 person party. Obviously pre-COVID days, everyone relax. But right, this is I mean, I think bringing in Snoop Dogg, and Josh, I agree with you. To see a 49-year-old Snoop Dogg, by the way, who doesn't age, and maybe it is the flowers, right? But I loved his performance, just because it kind of brought back the old days. And, for us, I listened to him a lot in high school, and it was just great to kind of hear him again. And at 49 and still thriving like that, plus his commentary was actually pretty funny. Like, it gave some kind of pop culture, to the fight, where you had the more serious boxers, right, talking technique, and you got Snoop Dogg just, rolling up J's and talking.
It was great. And then not a few days, like I think it was yesterday, the Snoop Dogg announced that he's partnering with Triller, an entertainment music platform that will put on the fight. He's going to create a new boxing league called the Fight Club, and he'll be announcing it. So you can just leave it there. It's going to be a great future for boxing going forward. Whether or not Holyfield takes a fight with Mike Tyson or not, it's going to be great because Snoop Dogg's involved.
Do you think Ed Norton gets the invite?
Brad Pitt versus Edward Norton. How much of a mind fuck would that be?
We gotta. You heard it here first. I think it has to happen.
Yeah. All right, Vince. Well, thank you so much for joining me this week. Again, great commentary. Let's hope your bets go a little bit better than they have been in the past.
Yeah, different sports, so hopefully it will.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
And we're